What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kickin with Kachi, powered by the DC Voice. I'm your host, Kachi, and today we have another amazing music artist straight out from the H-Town, Houston, Texas. Lil Savo, thank you for coming in and kicking with me, my boy. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man. Bless.
Obviously, so everyone knows that H-Town is a big music hub. Like, y'all got Beyonce, Travis Scott, the legendary, rest in peace, DJ Screw. You know what I'm saying? Chopped and Screwed music is the birthplace um of Houston. So what about Houston? Like, is a lot of that sort of culminates to kind of, putting your idea that music is something that you're into, that you could possibly also pursue as something you could do long term?
I mean, the thing is, Houston's so big, it's like a giant melting pot, so it ain't
Right,
just
right.
one, like, I don't know how to necessarily say, but it's a blend of like so many different cultures, like, especially with Houston being so close to the Gulf, we get so
Right.
much imported in, exported in, we down by the border. So, a lot of Hispanics coming up, everybody around. So, I mean, just from how I've seen it, I mean, I've been a part of the music industry since I was a kid. Like, I ain't know I wanted to do it.
Right, right.
Like, I was getting piano lessons, I was in choir, you feel me? So it's like everything just built up to that point where I think it was like maybe 7 years ago. That's never I really started. And then from there, it's just hit by hit. That's all I'm focused on. I'm gonna just take it one hit at a time, just keep on making good music and keep on putting it out consistently.
And what was that experience like first starting out? Like what was your setup like? Like you decided you're making music, you're writing songs, you're doing choir, you're like, okay, I want to do this for myself. Like what first steps did you kind of have to take and have to learn to try and get yourself as an artist?
Oh man, see that's the funny thing is I actually started off, I was just freestyling. So everything that we did was freestyling. I mean, it really started with my brother because him and his friends, he bring his friends over to the house and then they be freestyling back and forth. And me, I'm the younger brother, so I always want to be there with him.
Right,
I'm always do what he doing. So I mean, he really influenced me with that. And then from there, it's just we'd always freestyle time to time. And then there was one of my partners at the time, his name was Israel. He told me, man, you really good at it. You need to stop playing and go take it serious. So one day I finally booked a studio session and then went and recorded a hit. I think it was a song called Prime Time. That's the first thing I've ever dropped.
okay.
So I dropped that and then I think we did like 8,000 streams within the first week of me dropping. So whenever I seen that, I was like, okay, I got something here. I gotta really lock in for this.
And then obviously, as you're now locking in and try and get into making this a profession, right? Houston is a big hub, massive amounts of different cultures, massive amounts of different sounds, different waves. How are you trying to break out of, the noise, right? Of so many people coming out of this big city also doing music. How are you trying to set yourself apart, and what kind of things did you do or have to learn to kind of push your name out
One thing that I say is definitely you gotta have your own lane. Like everybody be trying to hop on these different waves, they trying to sound the same. And at the end of the day, you can't just do what someone else does. Like they always gonna be a specialty at their craft. You gotta work on what's your specialty and what's your craft. So I think it was a learning process, honestly, just having to figure it out on my own. I mean, we go through trials and errors. We'll make songs, and at first, like there'd be so many throwaway songs, like I ain't
there?
even.
Right, right.
And that's just the reality of it, because you gonna make some shit, and you gonna eventually evolve to a point where you're like, oh man, that's trash. I don't even.
Right, right.
And it's like you just got to put that work in. If you never take that first step and just keep on going with it, you'll never get to where you need to be. You
Is there
know.
ever a moment where, or I don't know if this is part of your creative process now as well, like it's going into making creative art, right? Like the bane of our problem is we enjoy making it, but we also got to eat. We got to have people see it. We got to get views. We got to get likes. Is that any of that come into your mindset when you're in the studio now? Like, oh wow, like this first hit, 8,000 views when it first came out. I gotta follow that up, and I gotta follow that up, and I gotta follow it up. There's a lot of that recognition kind of have a place in the mindset of creating for you now.
I mean, in a sense, yes, but at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is just to be able to change the world. I don't have to let the numbers kind of distract me because you get to that point, you start getting comfortable, like, oh yeah, I'm at 10,000 right now.
Right, right,
It's like it's cool, but it's not a million. You know what I'm saying?
right.
If there's 7 billion people in the world, why can't all 7 billion be someone who likes my music? So I mean, that's the ultimate goal is just be able to change the world through my words, and then eventually be able to reach out to so many different people and kind of impact their life too.
And obviously, like seeing your work come to fruition, right? You ended up on Big Shot Radio, a local radio station out in Houston. Congratulations. What was that experience like in seeing your work not only be recognized as something that someone may be liking to put it on the radio, but it's good enough for them to think someone else is gonna like it because it's on the radio. Like, what was that experience like in kind of hearing your music physically out in the airwaves?
I mean, really, it's motivating. It makes you want to get off your ass and go do it again. I mean, it's like milestones. You start checking them off the list. And it's like every single time you check something off the list, you feel more accomplished. It's like achievements for me. So I mean, there's still a lot way to go to check off the list completely. But I mean, just being able to get on radio, be able to be heard by different people to where it's not me like being like, hey man, come listen to my stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, it was definitely a big opportunity. And I appreciate them for letting me come on there too.
Did you get any extra calls or any recognition post that after the thing? Like, did it kind of do what you wanted to do? Or obviously, regardless of not, it's still in your back pocket. That's something that definitely has happened for you. But what has life been like for you? Because now that you're making music, it's gone from freestyling, probably writing your notebook, writing your bedroom to radio shows, right? So, what has that transition been like?
Um, Honestly, there's only one way to describe it, and that's phenomenal, you know? Like, to see everything just come together, it's a blessing. Because I
Hmm.
mean, point in time, nothing's guaranteed. I might not wake up tomorrow? So I'm just blessed to be able to do what I love every single day, honestly. And I mean, the opportunities are limitless in this type of industry because there's
Right.
so many different ways that you can go with it, so many different routes.
And like you said, I've been doing this for about 7, 8 years since 2017, 2018, first EP that I've seen, Purple Skies, that you released. So things that first, Purple Skies EP, how do you feel about that EP now? Now that you 7 years, 8 years in the game and been making music and has multiple singles and tapes out since then. Well, how has Purple Skies, what sort of place does it have in your heart now?
I mean, it'll always hold a special place in my heart because I'll go back and I'll listen to the songs and it's like whatever I was saying then, I'm kind of doing now. Like,
Right,
and
right,
about this, like it be times we'll make some songs and it's kind of like we predicting the future. You feel me? So it's like every time that I see something that actually come to fruition, and it's like, man, I remember making a song about that. It's just like everything coming full circle. It's a different kind of feeling, man. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like bliss.
right.
Like it's purity inside. You feel me?
I would say, what type of things do you feel like you honed or worked really on since then to then now? We're going to talk about obviously the new music, but just who you are now and how you create music and your ability to create your sound. Like, how would you kind of describe, or what words you use to describe that growth and seeing yourself then to then seeing yourself now?
I think at first I was kind of just making songs just to make them. They didn't
Right.
necessarily have purpose or direction. It's just let me get on here, let me rhyme a little bit, say some cool shit, and then we'll go from there. But like now, whenever I make music, like I'm focused on making classics. You
Hmm.
know, I want to just put anything out. It's about quality over the quantity. Because if it was really about putting out music, I could go and make anything. You know, especially nowadays, people attention span so small. You could go and
Right,
say
right,
throw it out there. They'll listen to it today. As long as you drop something else the next week or two, they're gonna come back for it.
right.
So, but that's the type of thing that I want to create is something that's gonna be everlasting. Like we're gonna be 10 years at the cookout, be like, hey man, you remember this song? Throw on that Lil Savo.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
say I release a song today, it'll be cool for a month or two, and then everyone gonna forget about it. Never do no more numbers, no nothing. You feel me?
Right, right.
Like the way I see it, I'm trying to be Michael Jackson big or really big.
Hmm.
Feel me? I'm trying to be worldwide with it. have my influence go all across the world. Yeah, it
And then
just
obviously we gotta talk about the influence, right? Like, what is this BJMG the label? That's the story behind that. Is this something that we should be looking for? Is something that we need to be on the horizon for? I know that Big Dollar. We're gonna talk about him as well. I know that he's very involved as well. So, is this some collaborative piece that we're just maybe getting sneak peeks into?
yeah. So BJMG, that's my partner Dolly and my partner Jawan stuff. They trying to get their own record label up and running, so that's their thing. I'm helping them out with. My thing is R2R, Rags to Riches.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
but I mean, yeah, BJMG, big BJMG shit. Shout out Big Dollars, shout out Big Gerard. I mean, they definitely influential on me too.
And it coming into rags to riches, right? Like you got merchandise. Is this you also had to have a background in designing album covers and doing artwork and graphic design as well? Is this artwork and clothing and merchandise that you have specifically designed and are now moving with your brand as well? What's the story behind that?
Oh yeah, so I design everything myself, especially cover arts, because it got to a point where I would pay people for cover arts, and everybody moves shady sometimes, so it's
Right,
like
right, right.
business, but it'll come to that point where they just kind of run off with your bread. So I was like, man, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the shady business. I gotta wait however long just to get some art. So it's like now I can just create art like that. I want to drop something. I'm gonna load up this little app that I have. I use some AI to create something like a template, and then I load it into Photoshop, go crazy on it, do my thing, spruce it up,
Nice.
and then drop them. Same with the clothing. A lot of stuff that I do is in both Photoshop. I'm trying to get a little bit more into like Illustrator stuff like that, so that way I
Right,
can.
right.
Because if I could learn how to do animation, then I could start doing like animated music videos, and then that'll take
Uh-huh.
direction. You feel me?
So are you constantly in a mode of thinking like learning new skills to kind of do things on your own, like the graphic design for the album covers, and then also looking to do music videos for yourself, and also running and operating your own merchandise for your brand. So is that part of the ethos as well, where you're in this very backpack-esque sort of thinking where everything that needs to be done, hands, 2 feet, you can do it on your own.
I mean, in a sense, yes, but I also am realistic and I understand that it's going to be some things that I just won't be able to physically do. Like that's whenever it comes down to having a good team. As long as you have a good team that can fill in your weak spots, then you always going to be successful. I mean, especially my biggest thing is just to focus on music. Like, yeah, it's cool that I make cover arts. Yeah, it's cool that I know how to make beats. I could engineer a little bit, record myself, but it's like, nah, whenever it come down to it, the main focus is always just going in there, being an artist, being 100% me, and just making the best music that I can.
And speaking of the best music you can, we got some new music that just came out. We got Stay Dangerous, just came out with Big Dollar. Amazing tape. You guys better go check it out right now. It's on all DSPs. First, before we get into the new music, what was that like in creating your newest collaborative project with a long-time collaborator? I think got like 12 or 14 songs on there. It's long, right? It's a full-length project with just you two on there. Very, very little other features besides you two. What was the experience like in creating and putting that project together with your friend?
Man, so just from the very beginning, so there's a song on there. It's called Nothing Easy. That's the one that like really sparked it all off. So
Right,
just
right,
backstory before we go into that, like the whole purpose behind Stay Dangerous was because there was a dude that I was cool with, but we ended up falling off. His name was D1 Diesel. So after that, like I kind of took a rest period about 6 to 8 months of not making music. So finally, I get back into the studio. I tell Dollar, I'm like, "Hey man, come with me, so that way I don't have to go here alone." So we
right.
go to a spot called Barron Studios down in Houston, Texas. This is whenever I meet my boy CJ. He one of the coldest engineers. I'm telling you, all this shit that we be making, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
We made this song called Nothing Easy. And it was like after we made that song, we kind of came out of there and we were just like, man, that shit hard. We should low key make a tape. So we start chopping it up a little bit more. Back though, we go do another session. And then I think the next session we made a song called the first song on the tape called Ocean Deep. And it's like, what is
Right,
my
right.
it really gets deeper than what's on the surface? Cause nothing.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, like every single time we go into the studio session, we was listening to Ocean Deep before we get there because that was like the little guideline for it. It was like, okay,
Right, right.
what is the purpose of this? And I told him every time he's going in there, like I said, we don't just make music. Nah, we make classics. We make shit that's gonna be something that people gonna spin the block on. Like there was a song on there, Chains Choking. I remember.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
like that song. That's one of my favorite songs, Chase Choking. I like that song.
oh yeah, so man, that song itself has its own backstory. Because after we recorded the Ocean Deep song, we probably about 7 to 8 songs into the tape, ready to drop, and we was shooting for 13. So I was like, look, we gonna make 20, but we gonna cut it down to 13. We gonna drop that, just in case we need some more for a deluxe. But with the change, we was sitting in his garage, and he had found his beat on YouTube, and he played it for me. And as soon as I heard it, I don't know what came into my head, but there's a song by Young Thug where it's like, I might die with all these chains choking me in my
Yeah,
sleep.
right. Yeah.
Mine kind of came into my head, and I was like, feel like these chains choking me when I go to sleep. And he's like, oh yeah, that's hard. Write it down, write it down. So we start sitting there, we writing the hook in this little garage off of Deborah Lane. And it just gets to the point where we finally go into the studio, and he go crazy on it. Like I don't even know what was going, because he didn't even write nothing of his.
You just
Like it was,
punching in.
yeah, just punching
Wow.
in straight off the top. And so it gets to the point where I told him, I was like, this got to be a song where you have 2 verses. Like I really just want you on here to just talk your shit. Let the
Right,
people
right.
Big Dollar is. And so he did the first verse, and then he was about to do the second verse. The second verse was cool. So I was like, you know what? I don't know about the 2 verses. And we kind of chopped it up. A couple weeks went by. We listened to it more and more. We like, nah, you definitely need 2 verses, but you got to clean that
Hmm.
shit.
Right, right.
We go back into the studio. He hop on the second verse again, redo it. And man, when I tell you it gets to the point where he about to do his ad-libs, I just walk up to him. I said, hey man, I don't care what you say on these ad-libs. I just want you to make me cry. You feel me?
Okay, okay.
Feel like at that point, I told him, man, you got to make me feel whatever you're saying. I don't care what you got to say. Just make sure that I feel that shit. And sure enough, I went out there, I smoked. I came back into the studio. He almost done with his ad libs. I'm like, hold on. The low key brought a tear to my eye. Yeah.
But
That
now
one
that's
just,
cool though, because you know what, collaborations, like it can be very hard as artists to not butt heads, right? And take
oh,
that
yeah.
criticism of saying like, oh, my verse, I got to go back and redo it, or listening to music for days on end, and maybe having an album that's probably already done, but then thinking we just got to get this one on there. So it's cool to see that in this game of where everyone is trying to get their own name out, there is still this idea of collaboration and still sharpening each other's swords. That's great.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, too. We always try to make each other better. Like, it's not even a competition. It's just about getting better. It's like a team at practice. Like, we just going to push each other to get to that strongest point every single time.
Right. And now we get into the newest song, right? Orange Sun Kiss. It's probably a little different than a lot of the other songs that you've been recently released, right? Obviously, for those that are probably listening, Orange Sun Kiss is definitely not like Stay Dangerous, right? It doesn't have a lot of those overtones, but it definitely shows your versatility as an artist as well. So, what's the story and experience behind that single? And moving on forward, is that leading to some new music for us to be on the horizon for? Is this probably a single for maybe a future album? What are we getting into?
Oh, yeah. So, first off, that Orange Sunkiss song is actually from 2020. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's like about 3 years old, but it still hits. And that's what I'll be talking about whenever I say I'll be focused on trying to make the classics. Even though that's an older song, it could still be listened to 5 years down the line. You
Right,
can
right.
enjoy listening to it as you did the first time. So, I mean, I spoke with my manager, Dom, and like I really let him make the choice because I gave him a selection of a couple unreleased things
Oh,
because
wow.
tape right now. So Orange Sunkiss will more than likely be on the tape.
Okay, okay.
Like, yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you. This the one. I ain't just gonna say it's the one if it's not. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. And I'm like, okay, so because I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't even dropped it. It was gonna be a throwaway.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
gonna sit in the vault forever and ever. So
And you
y'all,
know, sometimes a lot of those banger songs, a lot of stories sound out like those, like, oh, it was gonna be thrown away, or I was sitting on it for years, or it was meant for somebody else. So, shout out to Dom as always for making sure that that song came out the vault and was able to come out to the airwaves. So now that you made that decision in sort of reversing and saying, all right, this song would come out, did you go back and refine anything? Did you go back and touch it up, or was it exactly how you're thinking? Okay, this is kind of the
nah,
perfect time for this to be released.
yeah, it was just dropped it like it is. I mean, that's the thing. Whenever I make music, I don't do no second takes. Like it's
Right,
very
right,
so whenever I walk out from the studio that day, however that song sounds, 99% of the time that's gonna be the song, you know? So I mean, just whenever he told me like he was able to fuck with it like that, that's whenever I was like, okay, let's figure out what we can do with it.
right,
So
right.
the next step, we still got to discuss it. I ain't gonna let y'all in on too much of the back end, but we'll probably shoot a video for it, and it will more than likely be on my next tape. So
Okay,
my next
okay,
that I'm working on, I'm trying to go harder than ever. That's why I'm probably call it World on Fire, because we really gonna set the world on fire with this one.
okay, okay. And I was gonna say, so now that we know what's coming next, any last words before we head out of here from you specifically about the merch, the art, you as a person? What can we look forward to in addition to this new tape? Can't wait for that to come out from Lil Savo.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a very genuine person. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. If you reach out to me, as long as I see it, I'm gonna get back to you and we can chop it up, have a conversation. Especially if it's about business, I take business very serious. Most of my business runs through Dom now, so make sure that y'all hit him if y'all trying to get any features, bookings, stuff like that. But in terms of everything else, like I keep saying, I'm just blessed to be doing what I'm doing. I just keep a positive mindset, and that's really the goal. Just positively impact the world with my words and just keep on going. You feel me?
No, I love that. And honestly, once again, thank you for coming in and kicking with me, man. Like it's been a great conversation. I love connecting with new artists, and I already know that you're gonna blow up. I can't wait for the new mixtape to drop. We definitely gotta do another interview like this,
Oh
post
yeah.
interview, post mixtape, so we can, definitely get more insight about the journey into the world on fire. I think that's gonna be an amazing mixtape. I'm already looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it too, Kachi. Thank you for the opportunity, man.
Of course, of course. And you guys can check out my boy Lil Savo on all DSPs right now. That's your Spotify, Out Music, your Tidal, your SoundCloud, your YouTube, anything you're paying for monthly that you forget that you're paying for. Make sure you look up Lil Savo and listen to his music because the music is fire. Make sure you check him out on Instagram as well. Underscore little underscore Savo as well to check him out and message him about anything you guys need getting done. Also, message us at the DC Voice to check out this interview on YouTube and Instagram as well. I'm your host, Costa Analyst, Lil Savo. Thank you for kicking me, man. We're out of here. Peace.
Yes, sir. Peace.